In this section, we're going to take a look at how to create custom SharePoint lists, at the simplest ways we can add and run our JavaScript code inside the SharePoint platform. We'll take a look at SharePoint Designer software and give that an honorary mention. And lastly, we'll be using the JSLink to alter the rendering of list views and forms. This is a powerful mechanism that allows us to inject a JavaScript code adhering to some rules in order to change the behavior of list views and forms. And the first video will be called Creating Custom SharePoint Lists. In here, we will guide you through how to create SharePoint lists and libraries, as well as give you the understanding of the building blocks of SharePoint lists and libraries, which are content types and fields or columns. So SharePoint lists or libraries contain content types, which is like a grouping for columns. And those content types, in turn, are referring to one or more columns. We will discuss each of these tiers or layers next. Fields or columns. They are used to store data in lists or libraries. SharePoint provides a number of column definitions out of the box, so we can create a number of types of columns. For example, a single line of text, or a multiple lines of text, or a lookup to another list in the same site, or a user picker. Columns will have a scope. They will be either local to a list or library, meaning that they will not be visible outside of them, or they can be defined in the site collection level, which is a higher level, obviously, and thus they will be accessible to include in any list or library in any site in that site collection. Now, as I've mentioned, columns are grouped in lists or libraries with the help of content types. Which brings us to what is content type. Every list or library has at least one of them assigned from the start. It's an integral part of the list or library definition. Once the list or library is created, we can go into the settings and assign more content types if needed, or modify existing ones there. Content types are defined at the site collection level, but every content type in actually created list or library is a copy of the master content type that becomes loosely dependent on the original. What I mean by that is, once an announcement list has been created, it will have an announcement content type inside of it. But if we go and edit the fields inside that content type in that particular announcement list, we will only be changing the content type in that list. However, a relation between the master content type, which is defined in site collection level, and the one in the list is still there, because we can go into the announcements content type in the site collection level, add new fields there, and tick a box to propagate changes to every created list of the announcement type in that site collection. This will propagate our new changes from this master content type into all of the created lists. When we are creating new content types, they must inherit from some existing content type. This picture demonstrates multiple inheritance of content types. As you can see, document content type inherits from the item content type, and basic page inherits from document. Even more, web part page inherits from basic page. When we are defining our own content types, we must choose a starting content type to inherit from. This is not necessarily an item content type, it could be any of those. Let's talk about lists or libraries. While lists revolve around metadata, libraries revolve around actual physical files. So each row of data in a list is just that, basically filled up columns. But a list of data in a library is a physical file which we upload to SharePoint, and then we fill that with additional metadata if we need to. Actually, there is not so much distinction between a library and a list beyond the first point that I made. Library in the code level is a type of a list. To recap, library or list can contain either local or side columns, and they can contain one or more content types. Also, lists and libraries can have event receivers and workflows associated with them. Let's now do a short demo on how to create fields, content types, lists. We'll go to our SharePoint Online tenant. You see I have created a customizations demo theme site for these purposes. What we will need to do first is go to Site Settings and go to Site Columns. We'll show you how to create a site column. Click the Create button here. At this point we need to specify the column name and the type of that column. Let's say we want to select a person picker. Let's call that employee. To help us, we can group the columns into different groups. Let us specify our new group. There is also a number of additional custom settings which can be applied to a column, and some of these are common to all of the columns, and some of these will be specific to the column type. The common ones are require that this column contains information, enforce unique values, and I think that's it. We will require that this column contains information in this instance, and click OK. As you can see, we have created a new employee column, and it is being grouped in the Ad-hoc group, which we create. Let us create one more column. Let's create a choice column. Let's call that column contract type. Assign a existing group, same group as before. And you see we have additional setting here, which lets us specify the choices which will be available to choose from once we use that column in some kind of list or library. After this, let's click OK button. At this point, we have created two fields. Let us go back to Site Settings and create a new site content type. You can see here we need to select the parent content type. Let's do the basic one, item. It resides in the list content types group. Let us also assign a new group for our content type and click OK. When we created the new site content type called employee info, we need to add site columns into it. Let's go ahead and add from existing site columns here. Let's go to Ad-hoc group and add both contract type and employee fields. Notice here we can update all content types which are inheriting from this site. At this point, we can go and create our list. Let us go to Site Contents. This is the new SharePoint experience enabled in my SharePoint Online tenant. It differs a bit from the classic experience, but we can still do everything here as well. Let's click on the New button here and select a list. It will just create a custom list with our given name. Let's call it Ad-hoc list. Once the list is created, we need to go to the list settings, which will not be accessible by ribbon in the new experience, because ribbons are not available here. It will be, however, available under the gear icon here. Let us choose List Settings. This will take us to a familiar List Settings page. First, we need to go to the Advanced Settings menu and allow management of content types. Click OK. At this point, in the Content Types section, we notice that we have a default item content type enabled. Let us go ahead and add from existing site content types. Let us select our Ad-hoc group, select the employee info, and click OK. We see two content types here. What if we want to only show our employee info content type? We can go and change the order and default content types here. You can see we can disable the visibility of a content type. Let's click OK. And let's go to the default view page. At this point we can see the title field, but we also want to include other fields from our content type. Let's go to Show Hide Columns here, or we can go to View Options and Edit Current View. This will take us to the page where we can tweak the view settings. And inside the Columns section, we can find and enable our fields. And click OK. Finally, let's add a sample item here. Let us go ahead and save the item. And the item was recorded here. This is all for this video. In the next video, we'll cover the simplest ways we can add and run JavaScript code inside the SharePoint. Thank you.